Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, so today we are getting started on yet another cane mill project. I've got a Golden's number 2 cane mill. This is one, a vertical one with that the mule would walk around and around on. I've actually restored some number 2 Golden's before, and I've actually got 2 of them that I'm going to be working on kind of at the same time here. That I'm doing for some customers, for some viewers out there who have asked me to help out with doing some restoration work. So I'm pretty sure there's a video a while back where I may have taken this mill apart. I think I did a video on it. If not, I know there's videos of me taking those mills apart before, but just a little bit of the backstory here because it has been a while. I took the mill apart, we tore it down to its pieces. I sent it off, had it sandblasted. One of the ones that I'm going to be restoring, I actually had the outside parts powder coated. One of the ones I'm restoring, they were painted. It was just what the individual customer wanted done with their individual mills. They're the same model mill, but one was painted and one was powder coated. We're going to be putting all that back together later. But before we do, once again, we've got to give some attention to these rollers. Very common in these cane mills that when these rollers are sitting outside for years, decades, sometimes in the weather, what will happen is where the bearing journal is up against this steel shaft that it rotates on, the water will kind of just sit in between there and it'll rust out and it'll pit the shaft. And to have a good bearing surface for Babbitt bearings, we really need a nice smooth journal. So my solution to this is that I just weld them up and then we turn them back down to size. So the shaft in this is steel, the drum itself is cast iron. When this was made, they basically put the steel shaft into the mold, kind of like you would a core, but in this case, you actually put the shaft in there. There's actually, I can show it to you, but there's a key that they cut in that shaft, and then they pour the cast iron around it. And when the cast iron is poured around it, basically it's keyed to the shaft. The cast iron just fills into that hole, or that slot rather, and as the cast iron cools, it's going to shrink and get tighter up on there. So you end up, in all essence, with a pressed fit inside of this, and the metal is literally poured into the key. It's locked all in place. You're not going to get that shaft out. You're not going to press it out. If you press it out, you're probably going to bust the casting in the process. It's that well fused together, and it works pretty well. But in this case, the shaft needs some attention. We're going to get this welded up. So I've actually got this over here. I'll back up with the camera here in a minute and show you. I've got it sitting on my weld positioner, and I need to weld up basically from the bottom up here to about where the keyway comes down. And I need to do the same thing on the bottom, get it welded up. And then once that is welded up and cools down good, we'll take it over to the lathe and we'll turn these out. Now, on one of the mills, I've already got them welded up and they are just needing to be turned. I actually welded them up a long time ago, and that cane mill's just kind of been waiting to be done. So I'm kind of doing this in a batch because it is the same mill. It's just going to be real easy for me to kind of do both of them at the same time. And we'll be kind of putting 2 of them together at one time. So I got this roller to do, the big main roller, the top and bottom, and then the 2 smaller rollers for this mill as well. So there's basically 6 places that are going to have to be welded up, and then we'll have to go turn all of them down after we get done with that. So that's what we're going to be working on today. Let's get over here. I've already got the weld positioner kind of on a little table here where it's a little bit lower than up on my workbench. If it gets up on my welding bench, it just gets up too high for me to work with. I have to stand on a stool or something. I got it just sitting. It's actually a nightstand that this thing is sitting on that my wife was throwing out. And I said, you know what? That'll be perfect for what I'm doing. Probably not best to be welding on a wooden nightstand, but we're going to do it anyway. All right, let's move on. Show you my setup here. This is my weld positioner that I have. This particular weld positioner is made by Vevor. If you're not familiar with Vevor, they make Chinese junk. And I purchased this a while back. I was needing a weld positioner. It is fairly economical. It's not that expensive. And yeah, it's not expensive for a reason, unfortunately. You know, I'm giving it some crap, but it has done what I need for it to do. But I'm just not overly impressed with the quality of this thing. I'll just be honest with you. I don't know that I would really recommend them. I'll tell you, and I think I showed this in a previous video, right after I got this, I used it one time, And I came back and got ready to use it again, and it wouldn't work. And what had happened is a switch, this power switch, had just failed after, maybe 20 minutes of use. It was such a cheap switch, a toggle switch, made out of plastic. It just failed. And fortunately, I took it apart. I diagnosed the problem. I had a good quality switch laying in a toolbox in there. Within 45 minutes, I was back up and running. But the average person that doesn't know electrical stuff probably would have had to send this thing back or throw it in the garbage. Again, the build quality of this thing is not great, but so far, it has gotten the job done. If you're a weekend warrior and you just occasionally need something like this, it's probably not a bad deal. But for someone that's using it a lot, don't waste your time and money. If I would love to find a good quality, a used, whatever old weld positioner at some point in time to replace this thing with, because it's just a matter of time before it fails. But I digress. The first thing I want to do here, or let me show you kind of what this does. So basically, I got it up in here. You turn it on, and when you turn it on, it's going to spin. It's got variable speed. I can speed it up. I can slow it down. I can basically go whatever speed I want to do. So you can sit here and weld, and your part just turns right up underneath you. It makes it really, really nice. It's got this piece in the back where you can put your welding head on. So I'm going to be MIG welding this. So you can just kind of do a circle, move it up, do a circle, move it up. And yeah, it's actually pretty slick little concept the way this thing works. And it really makes doing these a lot easier. What I'm going to do is, before we actually set up the weld, I'm going to get over here with an angle grinder and probably just a flat disc. I just want to kind of clean this shaft up, as get down up underneath the surface a little bit, so that we have good weld penetration, get all the dirt and trash. It has been sandblasted, it's fairly clean, but there's a couple places in here it could probably be a little bit cleaner. The cleaner I can get this base metal, the better the weld's going to be. So like I said, we're just going to take a few minutes and do that. So let me go get the angle grinder, and we'll see if we can knock that out. Just kind of looking at the shaft here, I'm going to rotate this around. You can see the pitting in here that I'm talking about, and I'd have to turn this way down to get up underneath that. I would rather not do that. So again, I'm just going to clean this up right now, and we'll weld her up and hopefully get this problem fixed. All right, I think I've got most of the little potholes out of there. There may be one or two little small ones in there, but I've got pretty good clean base metal to weld to now, which will hopefully make things go a lot smoother as we get into this. So let me get my welder set up, and we'll start laying down some beads. All right, I think we are set up. I've got my torch over here set up, and basically what I can do is, after I turn around, I can just move it up and down a little bit at a time. What I tend to do is I'll make a round and then I'll move it up a notch. I'll make a round, I'll move it up a notch. And I've got my turntable set up with a foot switch down here, so when I press that, it's going to turn it around, and I'm just going to have to play with the speed and kind of get it where it needs to be based on past experience. Something about like that seems like it works pretty good. And I've also got a little hand switch here, so that whenever I push this button, it engages the welder. I used to have to actually come over here and manually hold the torch head. I found this little push button thing that I can control the weld with, and it seems like it makes it a little bit easier. All right, let's try it out. Usually I have to do some tweaking around with my settings on my welder and my speed and all that, so let's see how it goes here. Here we go. All right. Something's not. Off to a bad start. All right, let me play around with some things here and see if we can get this worked out. It's probably just some settings I need to play with. I think we made some progress here. I kind of reset my welder a little bit. I'm going to just move it up just a notch here, and we're going to make another round around it. We're just kind of spinning as we go. Here we go. All right, round number 2 looks good. I'm going to move my head up just a little bit, and we'll do another round. All right, I think we are up high enough. I'm just about to that keyway. So I think we're going to stop right there. So I'm going to turn my rotating off. And I'm just going to let this sit here and cool down on its own. Well, I flipped this thing over and I've got the bottom here welded up as well. Everything appeared to go pretty well, so I think we're good to go. I did have to do a little modification to my little weld positioner to do this. Let me show you what I had to do here. So this weld positioner comes with this little arm over here that lets you kind of move your welding torch up and down, or your, not torch, but your gun. And it works pretty well, but I had previously ran into a situation where it wasn't tall enough for the part that I was putting in here. So I made a little extension block down here in the bottom to kind of raise it up a little bit. But when I got this one in there, well, it was just a little bit too tall, wasn't quite tall enough to do that. So I made another extension block that I can put in here, and I can actually swap those out. Use one of them, use two of them, use none of them, depending on the job at hand. I didn't film it or anything. It's just a piece of metal that's turned down to fit down into the socket, and then this got a hole drilled in this piece fits into, and there's a couple of set screws in there to hold it all together. And it works. This is kind of a little bit taller than what I would really like for this to be, but you know what? It worked. We got the job done. It actually was pretty stable. This part was a little bit difficult to get set up because it has a square bottom. It's tapered on the bottom, and this has really got a chuck that's made to kind of self-center. I had to put some shims in there, and I had to spend some time kind of getting it where it ran somewhat true. I never was able to get it run perfectly true, but it ran true enough, so we got the job done. I'm going to pull this one out. I've got the two smaller rollers to do. Those should be a little bit easier to set up, and we need to go ahead and get those welded up as well. And I've got this drum suspended up by the gantry. I'm going to loosen up the chuck here. There we go. Pull my shims out that I had put in there to kind of help get it centered up. And take her up. This drum is too heavy for me to pick up by myself, so. And I'll just take it over here and we'll drop it down to the floor. All right, we're gonna drop this roller in there. It's heavy, but I can handle it. And I'll tighten up the chuck. This chuck should kind of self-center. There we go. All right, let me get my arm set up on this one, and we'll get this end welded up. It's pretty severely pitted. I think we are once again ready to start welding, so let's see if we can get this one done. All right, that one is done. I'm gonna let that cool down a little bit. We'll get it taken out and I'll get the other one in here. I'm only gonna do one side of these right now because it's just gonna be easier to get this side turned down where I can then chuck on that side to turn the other one down. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on getting the other one set up here as soon as this one cools down, and I'll do that one off camera, and I think we'll have these ready to start going to the lathe. Well, here we go. I got the 3 rollers welded up as far as I can go right now. Like I said, I still got to do the bottom, or actually that's the tops of the 2 smaller rollers, but I want to get the bottoms turned first, so I'll just have something to chuck up on. If I go ahead and weld them up, I don't have a good surface to kind of grip a hold of to get it on the lathe. So this is where we're at. Next step for these is an appointment over on the lathe to do some turning, and we'll probably do some video on that. That'll probably be next week. So anyway, just wanted to kind of show you where we were and where we're going to be stopping here today. So next stop for this project will be over here on the big Monarch lathe, and we'll hopefully get those journals turned out. Hopefully our welds are good and we can move on with this project pretty quickly. Then we can, once we get those journals all kind of tuned up nice and smooth like they should be, then we can get to pouring the Babbitt bearings for them. And after that, those mills should go together pretty darn quickly. There's not a whole lot more to do to them after we get the bearings poured, other than there's a little bit of hardware I got to make and got to buy some stuff or whatever. But those mills are fairly, I mean, I'm not going to say they're easy to do, but they're fairly simple compared to some of the big horizontal mills that I get to work on from time to time as well. So guys, with that, we're going to get out of here. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Thumbs up, comments, they really count. They really help a bunch. Please do that if you can. Big, huge thank you to those who support the site financially through Patreon and PayPal. Really do appreciate that. And guys, with that, we're going to get out of here. We'll catch you on the next video again. As always, thanks for watching.